So we're now going to think through in this section about customizing the mobile responsive theme. Just to remind you, CRM is using on the main a single responsive theme for all different types of mobile interactions, whether that's going to be the iPhone, the Android and tablet devices that access Sage CRM. And the mobile optimized theme for Sage CRM is one of the most useful features for customers. And the optimized theme really does allow access to Sage CRM using just about any device that you want. But what we have to understand is that in the reality of the world is that the mobile theme creates a subset of the interface. You have to be able to create it in a way that's suitable for the device, and so we have to have a way of rendering things suitable for the screen size, and that means compromising that not all features will be available within the mobile theme. And so and because it is a mobile theme to the interface, it's live access, so it's not we're not storing anything offline, but we can here extend the mobile optimized theme to include new entities, fields and structures. So how then do we go about starting to extend this mobile theme? Well, we're going to see in a little bit, we're using essentially a feature called run block to allow us to access existing entities, custom entities, etc., draw or even data drawn from external tables and bring those into the interface. So there's a codeless way that most customization gets carried out. We can't reference ASP or .NET assemblies within the mobile optimized screens, and neither can a mobile optimized client perform processes which originate on the service. So you can't drive a process to start off a mail merge, for example, and there isn't a way of driving out anything to do with workflow. So workflow and mail merge are not included in reference. You can actually see the features of the mobile interface listed inside the material that is up on the Help Center. But if you are customizing, then partners do this, can create components that include the custom screens and mobile screens to be able to deliver into a customer site, all just by using metadata changes and run block. So let's have a look at now how the mobile interface is actually generated. What we're thinking here is thinking about how we're going to be able to understand and test and prove to ourselves the way in which the mobile optimized theme is generated. Now we can obviously do this well, basically using a real phone and a real tablet, connecting to our Sage system and then taking it from there. But that's not necessarily the most convenient thing, especially within a development environment. And so our two options are either using something like the user agent settings, and that's where we associate the browser's own HTTP user agent setting to a particular mobile device. So if you opened up Safari, connected it to Sage CRM, you can tell Sage CRM and say, whenever you get a request from Safari, I want you to treat it as though it was a mobile device and throw out the screen. Or we would use Chrome emulation, and Chrome emulation is by far the easiest way of doing this. So this is just a question of toggling device mode in the Chrome developer tools to emulate the device, and that's just here. If you open up your Chrome browser, hit F12, and then you'll see at the bottom the option to be able to toggle on and pretend to be a different device, and you can then have it being iPad or iPhone or a Nexus or whatever device you want for that purpose. Now, how do we go about getting a screen like this? And one of the things that you'll see is that there is the possibility of editing or even adding your own new setting within the devices area. And so this is underneath Administration, Advanced Customization, Devices, and you'll see that CRM is storing a list of device settings mapped onto particular themes and a list of user agents with inside metadata. If I drop in, we'll see this if I go into Advanced Customization, go into Devices, and I look into the and the Sage Mobile theme is the theme that we're using here. We can see that this is using an mapped to an XSL file. I'll talk that through in a moment, and we can see that it's associated with inbound particular requests from specific user agents, and we can add our own user agent string to be able to do that. And if you're not sure about what your user agent string is, there are sites that allow you to be able to say what you're using, what your browser string is, whichever device you're using. Now, I've mentioned here how it's using the idea that there's a particular device going to be associated with a particular XSL file, or rather an XSL transformation file. What we have with inside Sage CRM is the idea that any screen is a result of metadata and application data being combined to create an original source of XML. So the data and screen definitions associated with the device will be retrieved from the database, and Sage CRM will then create an internal XML document. And now that's an internal document. It's not stored as a file. You can imagine it being held in memory, and it's then transformed into the finish HTML using a particular XSL transformation language file. So we're using, and these are the XSL files that we'll have, and then the Sage CRM itself is acting as the processor to generate the HTML for the mobile device. So imagine this as that we have each screen inside Sage CRM generating a separate XML file. These aren't real files, but we can imagine that when we go onto the list of companies or we go into the company summary screen, behind that there's an original XML file which is built on the basis of, well, there's the underlying data, the view that pulls the data up, plus there's the structures which determine which data gets added in to that screen. Now that file is not stored anywhere, it's generated on the fly, but then depending on the calling device, it's processed by one of these different XSL files. And that means together that causes the interface to be generated. And we can start to see how this happens by looking at the real screens that are generated. We can, and that can happen from the first screen. Now this is a screen grab from an emulator. I can, if we're working with an emulator, you can go and look at the source of the HTML in the same way. This is why it's so useful to be able to use Chrome as a device, because it allows you to examine the underlying HTML. And for the mobile theme, we can see that by examining the generated HTML, that it's different from the equivalent screen produced by the standard desktop interface. And here you can see right at the top there that we've got different JavaScript and CSS files being included, and which include files are referenced which elements are being included is being determined by the XSL file for the device. And we can extend this as we think about what happens once we've logged on and come into a screen like the calendar. Well, when we think about the calendar in the main interface, we know that it's far more complex than the calendar that we see here, but the theme has generated a simplified interface, and at the same time it's trying to use the device's ability to integrate with things like the phone's native ability to start telephone calls. But again, the screen that we're looking at has a different set of include files. It has different JavaScript and CSS libraries, and these are all loaded into the interface in order to control its behavior. Now, the simplified interface that is produced for the mobile device requires that certain data types have to be built in a different way when we access a field of that type in the mobile device as opposed to the main desktop theme. And if we consider a screen such as this one, which is the opportunity screen, and we're starting to see that I'm editing a screen, that this means that the lookup fields in a parental record, like company and person, behave differently. And underlying that is an example of a particular field type, which we the search select advanced fields. So search select advanced fields in particular render very differently in the mobile interface. The HTML is different, and we can see that there are particular files loaded in to control the search select advanced fields. Now, if you're familiar with the Sage CRM main desktop screens, one of the things that you'll notice from this is that there's no referencing to the standard libraries associated with the client-side API, and there's no references to any custom scripts that you may have put into the custom library. So this straight away tells us that we cannot expect JavaScript that we have written in the main desktop to express a business rule to be able to work in the same way within the mobile device. The mobile device is a much simpler environment. We have to code for this in a different way. And that has consequences all the way through, and especially around here because of the differences in the way in which field types are managed by the different devices. And the Search Select Advanced is a really good example of this. And there are some need to alter files. You see those files up there on the screen which which have SSA in their path, like SSA.js or SSA CRM JSTK, or where we've got SSA restrictors.js. So having said that you may need to change Search Select Advanced fields, and you may need to do that if you are extending CRM to include new entities or defining new types of relationships. Having said that you might need to do some changing of files, the majority of customization is codeless. The mechanism for extending the mobile optimized theme is nearly all done by configuration without any need to code. So there are no scripts or little programs to write. It's all done by using the inbuilt system actions and something called run block. Now here, to illustrate this, you can see that I'm looking at a list of quotes, and you'll notice that I'm in the context of a company that's called Gatecom. Now, quotes are something that are not normally displayed directly under the context of a company, but rather they're normally only accessible once an opportunity has been found and selected. But a mobile salesperson may want to be able to directly access historical information when discussing matters with a customer. So ROM-block is the feature that we're going to use to allow the codeless addition of customized lists and screens to Sage CRM. And so here you can see that I've come into administration, customization, quotes, and I'm starting to alter the mobile theme. So within the Sage CRM's administration screens, we can see that there's a list block called quotes list. And if you look at the definition screen for the list, you'll see that it is based on the view v quote oppos. If we want to build new mobile screens, we need to check the view to be able to ensure that it contains the correct contextual information. The v quote oppos view needs to be able to include the main contextual information, which is comp company ID, which is the primary key for the company table, so comp underscore company ID, and that's going to be then the main context information for the mobile screen. Now, I can see that the view v quote oppo does not explicitly contain comp company ID directly, but I know that it's based on another view, v quote oppo, which I happen to know does include explicitly the column or field that is comp underscore company ID. Now, in order to confirm which fields are returned to the mobile screen, we need to make sure that we're updating the correct mobile screens for the theme that we want to change in metadata rather than the desktop theme. So here I'm working, if I was working with a BlackBerry device rather than the standard iPhone or generalized tablet device. So you can see then once I've done that, that I can include the fields that I want inside the mobile list. And I'm choosing here for my list. I've done that, so I've got the list definition. I can prepare to call it from the company context. Now, to include the quotes list, I have to then go and add it into the correct tab group. And so I'm going into administration, customization, company, finding the tabs group, clicking customize or edit, and then making sure that the mobile device is selected so that I'm customizing the next correct item. So here you can see that I can add it into the tab group as a new tab, quotes, and the action needs to be run block within the name of the list being used. So once that's been saved, it becomes immediately available for mobile users, and the user can log on. The user can then go and find a company, and here you can see that I've searched for Gatecom, and I can find my company, and then I should be able to, from the menu, be able to choose to look at the list. And here I'm choosing quotes, and the quotes so appears. So this is shown on an iPhone, but the same feature, because it's to do with this optimization of the themes, and the theme is generalized, it will also show quite happily on an Android phone. And it's important to note that the mobile theme hasn't been redesigned to take into account the different devices being used, or in fact the different screen sizes. So the same screen on an iPad displayed in landscape mode will then allow the responsive design of the theme to allow it to be rejigged and reset. So this has all changed the way in which the menus are displayed.